There's only one big news story in town, and you've definitely heard about it. Another big news day for the palace. Downing Street has confirmed it has no plans to introduce a law to change the line of succession after the king stripped his brother Andrew of his titles. Andrew, who will now use his surname, Mountbatten-Windsor, remains 8th in line to the throne, and it would take an Act of Parliament to formally remove him. Well, the family of the late Virginia Giuffre, who accused Andrew of sexual abuse, say the news is a victory that is unprecedented in history.
It was about holding anybody that's been implicated to account. And I think the king is setting a precedent for the rest of the world leaders out there to actually come forward and say, you know what, even if it is my brother, I'm going to hold him to account. You know, survivors are front of mind, and we have to continue to keep that front of mind. But it's not enough. It's not enough. We have to have some sort of investigation that goes further into this.
Well, Andrew will also have to move out of Royal Lodge in Windsor to a property on the King's Sandringham estate in Norfolk. But sources have told the BBC it could be next year before Andrew moves out. It is important to say that Andrew continues to deny all the allegations against him, and even saying his name without the word Prince in front of is really, really strange today. Let's speak to Ben Lord, who is a royal expert and commentator, and he joins me now. Afternoon to you, Ben.
Hello, good afternoon.
It does sound odd just to say Andrew, doesn't it?
I've had to really focus on it. You know, all of my interviews and work in commentating on the royal family for the last 12 years or so have naturally addressed them all by the titles that they've been born into, because let's face it, he had the birthright of being called Prince Andrew because he was the child of a serving sovereign at the time of his birth. But Mr. Mountbatten-Windsor is what he is now.
I mean, did anyone see this coming, Ben?
I think the deeper this scandal has gone, and let's not forget that this first started unfolding in 2014. So this dark chapter has been slowly emerging over the past decade or so. And when we saw the emails that were leaked and reported on last month, it became clear that this was taking a tempo where something needed to be addressed. And therefore, seeing the titles and the peerages and all of that stuff dropped a couple of weeks ago, that was quite in itself a move. But to then see it go to this extent, I mean, bombshell is used all the time, but this really is seismic in bombshell terms.
Well, we saw the King come to Lichfield recently, and he was heckled, albeit by one man who sort of shouted, "How much did you know about?" Of course, at the time it was Prince Andrew and what was going on. And you don't know. Could this be a decision that's happened over many weeks, or was it a snap decision by the King? What do you think would have happened for it to have been announced so suddenly yesterday?
For this to be as significant and unprecedented as it is, this is not a knee-jerk decision. This has clearly had a lot of involvement, not just from the King, the Prince of Wales and other senior royal aides, but also the government will have been consulted and involved on this, because there's all sorts of legal instruments that have needed to be considered and brought into play to deal with the unwinding of the titles that Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor formerly had. But this has been a very measured, considered approach, but nevertheless hugely historic in terms of just how seismic the impact of it is.
We know that there's been many a royal scandal in the past. How does this compare to things that have happened in the past, Ben, in your opinion?
Oh, it's pretty incomparable. You know, you've got certainly in modern times, but I mean, even going back, you know, in previous generations of royals, you know, this is really enormous. And you know, what is a scandal at the end of the day? One could ask. But in this situation, you know, he has, you know, not just. I mean, I think about his poor daughters. You know, what on earth must they be thinking and reeling as a result of their father's associations and relations with convicted sex offenders. And it's awful in scandalous terms.
But also, as the palace made comment of, no one or very few people have been talking about the victims in all of this. Virginia Giuffre is now gone. It's her memoir, isn't it, that has caused us to still be talking about it. And up to 200 victims. Again, Andrew has said he denies all the allegations against him, but we do know there are victims, and no one's talking about them.
I think the statement from Buckingham Palace last night does give a very clear theme and tone that the impact and the position that these victims are living and dealing with is very much in the mind of their majesties. And whilst there might not be as much narrative said about that as could be, I do think more will come in terms of the impact that's been had on them and how they need to be rehabilitated where possible going forwards.
Absolutely. I'd like to get your reaction, which I'm sure you have seen and heard, the reaction of the Question Time audience on BBC One when the story broke last night. Take a listen.
We have a breaking story which we should respond to. Prince Andrew. The King has initiated a process, so we're going to discuss this. Prince Andrew will no longer be Prince Andrew.
Palpable gasps, Ben, from the audience, and then the round of applause.
I think it demonstrates that the King is very much in touch with his public. The public have been calling for things to go further since the stripping of the Duke of York title 2 weeks ago. And he is, probably will be for a very long time to come, if it's ever surpassed, the most unpopular royal that we will see.
And yet, Ben, there's a part of me and potentially people listening saying, look, he's been humiliated. He's never going to be in front of royal duties again. Should we just leave him alone?
That's a difficult analogy to take, because ultimately, until yesterday, he was living in property owned by the Crown Estate, which is public property. He was benefiting from all that sorts of aspects of public life. That said, to date, he's never been charged criminally with anything. He denies it, and that's the facts of the matter. However we want to interpret and analyse that, that is the facts of the matter so far. And it's just, he will now be living effectively in exile for the rest of his days, because he's just tarnished and will go down with names who have also been linked to similar kinds of scandals in years gone by, very similarly.
Okay, final question, Ben. Where does this leave the monarchy?
Well, the King and together with the support of the Prince of Wales and Her Majesty the Queen will surely have to be recognised that they have done really the most they possibly can in drawing a line under this. They have stripped him of everything. They have demonstrated that no matter who you are in the hierarchy of the monarchy, you are not as untouchable as perhaps Andrew had behaved previously. And therefore, I think it does demonstrate a very strong zero tolerance culture. And that action will be taken. And I think that had they not have done this, it would have been even more damaging than it already has been in terms of the disparaging reputations that have been circling around for a while.
Ben, thank you very much. I think you're going to be a very busy man for the rest of the evening. That's for sure. I know you've been doing interviews all day, so thank you very much for your time. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Ben Lord, a royal expert.